Join me in welcoming Annie Lynn. Hey, Annie, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing really good, thanks. First
Good.
off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Um, I am Annie Lynn. I have written my first book called Beneath the Surface. I am a wife of almost 27 years, and I have three children who are mostly grown. They're in their 20s, still growing though. um, and I just, I have this book that started as a little project and has blossomed into this glorious thing that I love.
Well, I love that. So, talk to us a little bit about where the book Beneath the Surface came from for you.
Um, I have journaled for much of my life, and this book it wasn't a direct shot. It was kind of it took a roundabout way to come. Um, I started it. I was writing fiction stories. And I thought that's where my niche was going to be, was in fiction and love stories. But every time I started a story, something pulled me back to my own story and my own life. And that's what Beneath the Surface is. And when I began writing it, it was like a journal. That's that's how I was used to processing my feelings and what was going on in my life. And eventually, these fiction stories were just pushed aside, and out came Beneath the Surface. And I realized I needed to write that to cleanse my soul in a way and just get everything out there.
So, tell us about the things that you reveal and that you helped bring out for yourself in the book Beneath the Surface.
um I didn't have the model childhood. It wasn't the worst in the world, but in the same respect it wasn't the best. And I needed to um expose seems like a harsh word, but I needed to share that so the people who were maybe going through the same thing or had gone through the same things that I have, they could read and know that there was somebody else out there who shared what they did, shared same things that happened in their life or similar things, and that they can rebound from that and create something good.
I love that. I know a lot of times when we have things like that in our life, we tend to, regardless of how many other people tell us they've been through it, we tend to feel like we're the only one and that we're really alone. Did you go through that yourself?
Oh, yeah, a lot. Growing up, I always felt like I was my own little soldier in my own little army. And, um, but no matter what I did, I was alone. And even as an adult, I I had my identity as a mother. I had my identity as a wife, but I still hadn't completely dealt with what had happened in my childhood. So though I had other things surrounding me, I still felt alone.
So, what did you do to begin to realize, that you weren't alone?
The first thing I did was my husband didn't even know of all of the abuse that I had suffered as a child. And my first big step was to tell him what had happened. And after I told him, the floodgates just opened, and I must have cried for ages. I'm surprised I wasn't dehydrated because I was crying so much. Um, but then I began therapy, and that was really what started to turn me around. And then the next big step that I took was I had emotionally disconnected from my family, but physically they were all still living right around me. And we took the big step and moved from Pennsylvania to Florida and created a physical boundary and a physical separation from my family.
So, when you went through this process, did it feel kind of like going up into that dusty attic that you've never really looked at? Or, I mean, how did that feel for you?
It it did, because I had never verbalized any of these things. And I had to go up, and there were some things that were kind of locked away, and I never let them out. And this was my chance to, and I knew if I was to heal and to grow, I needed to get all of that out and reach deep down and be honest with myself.
And, some of it they have to read the book in order to be able to see it. And some of it's probably stuff that you're never really going to totally share with all of it with the world. I understand that. But what is a kind of a trick that you've learned to be able to accept the things that you can and let go of the things that you can't?
Um, a very good friend of mine gave me a bookmark of, oh gosh, I can't think of what it is. The okay. I knew it's like, I believe in AA they use the accept the things you can, and change the things you can, and accept what you can't. And that was a big step. Letting, not only did I get all of this out, but I had to accept, just, I can't change the past. And that was big for me. You can't change the past. You can only grow and move on from there. And so that's what I tried my best to do. At first, it was very difficult, but it's something you almost have to practice and live day by day. And that's just what I did. It just, I didn't want to live in that past. I wanted to live in my present and in my future and enjoy what I had in front of me, instead of um, crying over what had happened in the past.
Well, as the book title alludes to, obviously, and for many of us, there's the surface. There's that people look and see what we are on the outside. And then there's those things that are sometimes just barely below the surface, but are down below that. Um, do you still find yourself having those two different lives, or are you getting to the place where you can show people, those deeper things?
I think I'm getting to the point where I'm living my current life. I'm I'm not thinking about that. The the past used to haunt me, and I don't think I'm being haunted anymore. What I want to do, I do. And not that I'm doing bad things, but I'm not living in fear anymore. I'm living for me and living for my own family that I've created, my children and my husband, and my friends as well.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So, With the growth and all the things you've learned, what's one thing that you've learned that you can share with the listeners today?
Resiliency. There's there's always hope. You don't have to live in that past. Just because something bad happened doesn't mean you have to stay there. Look beyond and see that there are better things. You know, if this interview today would go terribly, yes, it would crush me. It would hurt a lot, but I can't go into another interview thinking, "Oh, I did terrible. I have to do, I'm going to do terrible again." No, learn from the mistakes and move on. And the other thing is to find your chosen family. Relationships, I read this, relationships are not obligatory. So just because you have a brother or an uncle, a cousin, a neighbor who you think you need to have a relationship with because they are your family or your neighbor, nothing is obligatory. You choose who you are and you choose who your family is. And some people have wonderful families. I'm not putting that down at all. Some have sisters and brothers who are best friends, and that is fantastic for them. However, we have not all been blessed with that. So we just have our chosen family and who we want to spend our time with and celebrate holidays with. And that's how we live.
I love that. And just so you know, so you can take a deep breath, you're doing really good with the interview, so you don't have to worry about that.
Thank you.
So let's talk specifically about the book. Of course, you can get it today for free on Amazon. What is your intention? What are you hoping people will get out of the book?
I hope people will see that there is hope and there are life lessons throughout the book and events and things that I did with my children growing up. And I'm not a parental guru by any means, but there are with my family, I celebrated everything with my children. We had a holiday every month that we we went a little crazy with everything, but I wanted them to celebrate all the time and celebrate every day and celebrate what they have. So that way, when there were bad times, they could always look back and say, "Oh, but wait, we did this holiday," or we up in Pennsylvania when we had snow days. For some reason, people would go to the grocery store and buy bread, eggs, and milk. And our family would go to the grocery store and buy hot dogs, graham crackers, marshmallows, and chocolate. And from the time the kids were very, very little, we would make a tent in the family room. And if it snowed, we were roasting hot dogs on the fireplace. And then we'd make s'mores on the fireplace. And the kids loved it to the point where when they were in their late teens, they'd be like, "Snow, snow. Do we have hot dogs? Can we make s'mores?" And so now that we're in Florida, it's hurricanes instead of snow. And we don't have a fireplace, but we still, if everybody's here, we still do something like that. But I want people to be able to read the book and know there are so many options out there. You're not limited to Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter. There are many other directions to go.
I love that. And I did put the link down in the comments if you didn't see them up in the description so that you can get the book today for free. Annie, thanks so much for writing the book and thanks for being a guest here on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Steve. I appreciate you.